So it all looks done and dusted now that KSI is going to be fighting Joe Fournier on May the 13th on the Misfits card in London. And whilst it hasn't been officially confirmed by KSI, DAZN or Mams yet, it's been pretty ironed on. KSI said that he's fighting May the 13th. Joe Fournier said that he's the replacement. So it does look like it's pretty much official that KSI will be fighting Joe Fournier May the 13th. And now, for me, this poses big threats to KSI for a number of reasons. First thing first, we need to establish Joe Fournier is definitely KSI's biggest challenge without a shadow of a doubt. You know, Logan Paul I would say would have been his best challenge by now. I think Logan Paul's better than Temper, but I think Joe Fournier is definitely a better boxer than Logan Paul, definitely better than Temper, definitely better than Pineda and Swarms. But yeah, so Joe Fournier is going to pose KSI's first real proper test. And now, these are the reasons why I think Joe Fournier is going to be that big test for KSI. Joe Fournier's strengths seem to be the weaknesses of KSI. Joe Fournier is a very good boxer. You know, he's not too flashy, he's not the best mover, but he's pure boxing skills, you know, jab right. He's a very good boxer. You know, in the background, we're going to see some of Joe Fournier's clips from his other fights. You know, he's a good boxer. He's 9-0. You know, although his opponents may not have been to the best standard, he's still fought quite well. And you know, you can only beat what's in front of you. And this is where I think it'll be a bit of a problem for KSI, because KSI is a bit of an unorthodox fighter. You know, we've seen his style. I mean, how he knocked out Temper. It's not an orthodox style of fighter. You know, fighters don't really typically have the style, and Joe Fournier has that orthodox style, you know, that European style, you know, straight punches, jab, 1-2, you know. Joe Fournier is that boxer that KSI isn't used to, you know, and I think the Joe Fournier with the straight shots, KSI leaves himself open quite a lot. You know, he did get clipped a couple times by Temper in that fight, and Joe Fournier, if he just keeps to his boxing basics, he could pose a big problem to KSI. And moreover, Joe Fournier, whilst he is 9-0 and he hasn't been in with the best boxers, he's been in with David Haye. And, you know, he did get knocked down once. It wasn't the biggest knockdown, and he survived all the rounds with David Haye. And so that's no feat that should be, you know, disrespected. That's a very impressive achievement. David Haye was a world champion, one of the best cruiserweights of all time. And Joe Fournier, and whilst he's a little bit past it now, you know, he's a bit old, Joe Fournier went the full distance with him, and that is something that I think that KSI would, if I were your KSI fan, you need to be worried about. Joe Fournier has been in there with a top level operator in David Haye, and he didn't look bad. You know, he was landing some shots on David Haye, and he didn't make a bad name for himself. So Joe Fournier is definitely a real test for KSI. Now on to KSI himself. I think his devastating knockout of Temper, no one can take that away from him. The way he knocked out FaZe Temper was just disrespectful, you know, left him on the floor. But I feel like that's taken away from his actual overall performance. And I think whilst he has got better from his last fight against Pineda and Swarms, he's not perfect. He definitely was not perfect at all. And he was, like I mentioned earlier, he was getting clipped by Temper. And I think if you're a KSI fan, he still needs to tighten up his defense. And with someone as Joe Fournier, who seems to have the boxing fundamentals, that is something that a KSI fan needs to be worried about. You know, one thing that I will give credit to KSI for is he looks like he's very good on his feet. He's a very good mover. And if you're a KSI fan, that is something that I think plays into your advantage. KSI is going to be creating angles, moving around, and I think he can definitely outwork Joe Fournier. Apologies. But yeah, another thing about Joe Fournier is same thing. He's a bit sluggish in the sense, you know, he's slow. He's not punches and bunches. You know, he's just 1-2 reset. You know, guard up, 1-2 reset, guard up. You know, he's not. He's you know what you're getting with Joe Fournier. That's it. You know, good boxer, good fundamental, decent defense. KSI has that awkwardness. You know, who knows what his style's going to be. Nobody thought KSI was going to come in that Michael Venom Page style. You know, hands down, bopping. You know, in out. You know, usually he's seen to that. You know, just slugging with his arms up, going for big swinging punches. So KSI could rejuvenate his style yet again. I don't think he will. I think he will have that style that we saw against the Temper fight, you know, just bopping, you know, hands down, looking for angles, switching it up, and I think that's how KSI will come out. Can KSI win this fight? That is a very important question. The important question, the question why I think you're all watching this video right now. And I think that answer is yes. Will KSI win this fight is another question, and I'm not too sure on that question, because I think although Joe Fournier he does look decent, he's in with there with tomato cans. So I think if Joe Fournier can implement his style and perform how we've been seeing him perform in his 9 fights, and if you want to include the exhibition against David Haye, then I think he poses real problems for KSI. And with KSI's open defense, and you know, his boxing fundamentals aren't quite there to the level of Joe Fournier, then I definitely think that KSI could lose to Joe Fournier. But Joe Fournier is 39 29. KSI is 9 years younger, 30 years of age. He's young, fit, fast. You know, he's got that grit, the stamina, the willpower. These are all things that play into KSI's, you know, play into KSI's hands. And I think KSI and Jake Paul are in very similar positions here. Jake Paul, maybe not so much. I wouldn't say his boxing skills are that far off Tommy's, but I think that in the consensus that I'm getting for the Jake Paul fight against Tommy Fury, the people are saying Tommy Fury is the boxer, but Jake Paul's got these attributes that are going to play into him winning. You know, people seem to think that Jake Paul's going to win. He's the favourite. You know, he's got the stamina, the willpower, the grit, and he's going to want it more. And I think that's what is going to play into KSI's hands. He's going to want it more. He's going to have that stamina, the grit. He's got that dog in him. And I think these are the things that are going to play into KSI's hands, and why I think he could beat Joe Fournier. But yeah, that is all from me, guys. If you have enjoyed the video, please do subscribe and comment and like the video as well. It does help out quite a lot. But yeah, that's all from me.